Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to talk about astrology and the death of Betty White. As many of you may know, Betty White was a legendary actress, and she passed away sadly. And based on what I've researched on the internet, it is stated it is of at least likely natural causes. I have not heard of anything else but that, but obviously something else may develop later on where they may elaborate or expound on the reasons, if there's anything more specific that may be tied into her passing. But first of all, I want to offer my condolences and prayers go out to the close friends and family members of Betty White, if any of them happen to see this video. Just such a traumatic, terrible, event. She lived to almost 100 years old. I'm sure a very full life. She has the sun in Capricorn, which is not surprising. Capricorn is the sign of longevity and old age. And Capricorn people, I'd say a lot of them have an uncanny ability, to be appear older when they're young and more youthful as time advances. When they become older. And the thing about this is, many Capricorns, and many of you may know, live into their 80s or 90s. I believe Capricorn is the longest living of the zodiac signs, at least on average. Many of them live into their 80s or 90s or even beyond. She almost made the 100-year mark, which living to 99, of course, is a very monumental achievement, and that could be a vast understatement. I want to talk about some natal placements, transits that can be tied in with her life and her passing. And the thing is, I'll look at her chart, of course, going back to the sun in Capricorn. That's something right there where her life was likely dominated by her career ambitions, and again, a life that she lived to an older age, much older than the average person lives. I don't know what the precise age is. The average age of people are Americans, and maybe around 78. You may want to confer that on the internet. But the thing is, first off, Sun is also conjunct Venus in her chart, Venus in Capricorn. So it's not surprising, she came across to many as attractive even in her older years. And the fact that Capricorn is the sign, I would say, connected with older age, it's aging, and the fact that Venus, the planet of beauty, is conjunct the sun, it's not surprising she was able to maintain certain attractiveness even in an older age. Her ascendant is Leo. And this is all that flavors the life. The sun is associated with the life, but it flavors the life that was lived very vibrantly. I would say having a Leo ascendant, and obviously I'm sure she came across as a lot more gregarious and extroverted than the typical sun in Capricorn. Now she does have in her natal chart, she has 7 of the 10 planets below the horizon on the bottom half of the chart. In other words, in houses 1 through 6. So she may have been a little bit more introverted than extroverted anyway, but what she projected outwardly, which is the Leo ascendant, tells me that she came across to others as just generally a lot more extroverted than her Capricorn sun sign would actually show. Now, another thing too is when people, well, first I want to say transit Pluto was conjunct her sun, natal sun, at the time of her death, and I've seen a number of people, sadly they'll pass away. The transit Pluto was either by the conjunct the sun, or even relatively close proximity to it, even if it's not conjunct, or if it's conjunct the one's ascendant. The sun is about life, and Pluto is about death and obliteration. And sadly, this may have played a role astrologically in her life ending, sadly. Again, a life being with the Sun in Capricorn, that might have been dominated by career endeavors and ambitions, and one that may have been lived with a lot of structure and discipline at the same time, and being a life where she showed a lot of responsibility, I'm sure. Uh, Another thing too is I thought was interesting when I look at the chart as well. She's also looks like she went through her Venus return. I gotta see if I can try to see the chart. This transit a little bit better. She was going through the Venus return in Capricorn. It wasn't far from her natal Venus, so maybe this was something that signified being at peace at this time after living a life that was very, insane during her life, that she lived for a pretty good time period. Again, being in Venus being in Capricorn, the sign of older age and aging. And the thing is, the fact that transit Pluto was conjunct her Sun at her time of her passing, that could be an indicator that it was where they talk about death due to natural causes, a death due to just older age, and just the body just really just reaching a point where she just you reach a certain age. A lot of instances it's like natural causes. You died of older age, and I'd say that is likely what happened with her. Again, I haven't heard anything on the internet, seen anything on the internet that contradicts that or is conflicting with her the way she passed, but there may be some more things that might develop later on that might elaborate more on her passing if there was something else that was different than just dying from natural causes. Now, another thing I noticed too, and I've stated this in previous videos, is that when you have she has a fixed T-square in her chart with the Neptune and Neptune in Leo opposing Mercury in Aquarius, and both squared by Mars in Scorpio. Now, when you have a transit that opposes the focal point of a T-square in a chart, in many instances significant events could happen. Now, transit Uranus, which is connected with the future and being in a stable, secure, peaceful Taurus, this was opposing the focal point of her fixed T-square. It was opposing Mars in Scorpio. Now, this could have manifested in a multitude of ways, but what it tells me is that when you have, the transit of Uranus opposing Mars, well, one way this could have been expressed is maybe not having the energy, sadly, to pursue the future, because Mars is away from Uranus. When you talk about oppositions in astrology, that's when you have the furthest point from planet A to planet B, or astrological point A to astrological point B. So with Mars in Scorpio, she has it in her dignity, very good placement. It tells me that she had the energy to do things with physical strength that might have seemed insurmountable to other people, and especially considering she appeared to be somewhat diminutive in stature, probably was able to do a lot more than a lot of other people could do that were bigger than her. Having when you have the transit of Uranus opposing your Mars, this could have been a time where it was just harder to find that energy to pursue the goals and aspirations. And Uranus is the planet of unpredictability too. That could be a sign of something very surprising and shocking that might not be positive that's happening with one's energy and vitality. And Mars is in Scorpio, the sign of transformation, don't forget as well. And what it tells me as well, having the square involved with Mars in Scorpio to Neptune in Leo, it tells me that you may understand that adverse aspects, squares and oppositions are adverse and negative aspects in astrology, but there can be some blessings in them. In some ways you can derive something positive out of these aspects and at times. Now, the Mars is about your drive, your motivation, your energy, your physical strength, vitality. And the fact that it's squaring Neptune, planet of dreams, in Leo, the sign connected with entertainment and acting, performing, that it might have taken her a lot more energy to actually pursue those dreams and to fulfill them. And she did. But it tells me that it took probably a lot more, expended a lot more energy and will than the average person would have had to in order to attain those dreams. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now, another thing too is that, when I look at this as well, look at her, look at the chart. Also, transit Sun was at least in loose opposition to the natal Pluto. It's at her natal Pluto at the time of her death. Now, it was reported, if I remember correctly, that she died in her home. Pluto is in the zodiac sign Cancer. Now, I know that's generational, but that could still be an indicator of death in one's home. It's also one of the rulers of the fourth house of the end of life. And but what I want to get to is when you have that opposition of the transit Sun, in this case may have been making a loose opposition to the natal Pluto. Well, sadly, that may have manifested in really not having maybe that Pluto's about passion, desire, that passion, desire for living at that time may have been sadly, not been there, because the Sun is about life and Pluto is about passion, desire. And again, you have another thing with the transit of the Sun opposing, the Pluto. It can be where it might be hard to find, really to you find the drive and motivation. If there was if she was at the time she was trying to make some major change or transformation at this time, it would be difficult, of course, to find that at this time, because the Sun can be about drive and motivation, and the Pluto is connected with transformation, and Pluto being the zodiac sign Cancer could be transformation of the home in some cases. And the another thing is, and I would say too, another thing I noticed. Now I understand that it's been reported that at least as of right now, is that it appears from natural causes is how she passed away. But I noticed too, she also has Neptune, transit Neptune, making at least loose and conjunct to the natal Leo ascendant. Now, inconjuncts can often be about health-related issues, and Neptune is connected with diseases. Pisces are ones that are not curable, or they're somewhat nebulous or unclear. They can't, or perhaps can't, well, I should say, can't be eradicated. Now, I don't know, as far as her situation, if she had been vaccinated or not. She had been, I believe she was, not to say reclusive, but she was, being somewhat confined due to the pandemic, I guess you could call it, the COVID, still being or still prevalent. And I'm not saying this is definitely what happened, but I mean, there's a possibility there may have been something with a COVID-related issue, or maybe the diminishing of the immune system. Neptune and Pisces are both associated with the immune system, and it might have been her immune system might have been weakened at this time, which didn't help matters, as far as passing, passing away. It's just again, it's just terrible that this has happened. She was an iconic figure. She brightened a lot of people's lives. Again, that Leo ascendant with that very sunny outer disposition, you could say, outer demeanor. We're trying to see if there's anything else I could add to this. The only another thing I would add is that their natal placement with Mars and Scorpio, you know, right by the fourth house cusp in the fourth house, it's not surprising that as far as the end of life, she had, expressed a lot of vitality and energy. And Mars, I mean, is about combat. Scorpio is the sign of death. It's about, it could, perhaps it manifested in combating death. And that's what she did. Appears at the end of life. The fourth house, again, is connected with the end of life. And one of the rulers is fourth house cusp. Okay, the fourth house cusp is Scorpio. And one of the rulers, Mars, is in the fourth house, and the end of life did apparently take place in the home. And another thing too, I noticed she has her, looks like her Mars is also in trine to her. Trying to see, verify this, look at the aspects here. Her Mars is trine to Pluto, so that's really having really good drive, I mean, Mars, again, Mars is connected with drive and motivation and enthusiasm and strong ability, I would say, to deal with anything that may be traumatic. I mean, Pluto's could be about trauma, but also to make, major change, a transformation, a rebirth, deal with crisis. And to me, it's something that, that really was a strong, I'm sure that was a strong part of her being, and really, and also, I mean, Pluto is also about power and also ability to control anger to a certain degree, I would say, as well. Having Pluto again making a trine to her natal Mars. Mars and Scorpio can be explosive though by itself. Don't get me wrong. But it shows that she likely had, so good, decent control over that though, and she also, I mean, having, the planets and having the Sun in Capricorn especially, have as far as her basic character, one that was likely very structured, very disciplined, one that was, I would say as well, very industrious and hardworking. And many Capricorns will do things, will accomplish more physically than people that appear bigger and vigorous and stronger than they are. Other thing I didn't talk about is her moon being in Virgo. Now, the moon being in Virgo tells me that, as far as the moon can be connected, to public, and she may have been, publicly, as far as recognized being in Virgo, someone that could be, very industrious, a hard worker, very precise, somebody that would be reliable, maybe meticulous with details, industrious, perhaps even analytical as well, and just and also a certain cerebral quality, say perhaps as well. And anyways, really, and probably and moon is also connected with the emotional needs, so that could be connected with work, service, health, maybe I'd say analysis as well, maybe extrapolating data. So the thing is, anyways, really not much more to say. I do notice that it's interesting though, she has her North Node conjunct Jupiter, which is not shocking. It's in Libra, which is connected with the arts, which can include acting. And Jupiter is about luck and fortune, and it's conjunct the North Node, so perhaps that's, I mean, for her, I'd say that was an aspect where she was destined for certain prosperity and fortune, and doing something with acting, the arts, which can include acting. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.